I raised his children like they were mine. Then I found a shocking truth. From the first day I met Grace and Eli, they looked at me like I was a stranger trespassing in their world. I didn't blame them. Their mother, Catherine, had died only a year before. Michael, their father, my husband, said her death was an accident. A slip on the stairs, he claimed. The words sounded rehearsed even then, but love makes us blind to rhythm.
Still, I tried.
I learned Grace's favorite bedtime story, the one about the lost swan who found her voice. I packed Eli's lunches, sat through every Little League game, clapping the loudest. I became mother, nurse, teacher, everything a stranger wasn't supposed to be. Years passed. They began calling me Mom. And I believed it. Until the night I found Catherine's old journal in the attic, wrapped in silk, hidden beneath the floorboards. The first page read, "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident." That was the moment everything I knew began to unravel. Catherine's handwriting was graceful, looping, alive, the kind that told stories even between the lines. Her journal wasn't filled with poetry or memories. It was filled with fear. She wrote of Michael's temper, of hidden accounts, of a deal he said would secure their future. And then one final entry, dated 3 days before her death. "He's changed. The man I married is gone. If I disappear, tell the children I loved them." My chest tightened as I closed the book. I stared out the window, watching Michael mow the lawn like any loving husband. That night, I lay awake beside him, wondering if the man I shared a bed with was capable of killing the woman who came before me. And worse, what he was capable of doing to anyone who found out. After that night, I watched him differently. Every smile looked rehearsed. Every gentle gesture seemed staged. When he kissed my forehead, I flinched. When he laughed, I wondered what he was hiding behind it. Grace began to withdraw again. She'd come home from college some weekends, quiet, avoiding her father's gaze. Eli had joined the Navy, barely speaking to either of us. And then one evening, while cleaning Michael's office, I found a sealed envelope tucked beneath a drawer. Inside was an old life insurance policy, Catherine's, worth $2 million. The beneficiary's name, Michael Miller. The date, 2 weeks before she died. That night, I cried in the shower until the water ran cold. It wasn't grief. It was realization. I didn't go to the police, not yet. Instead, I went to Catherine's best friend, Denise, a realtor who still lived in town. When I showed her the journal, she turned pale. "She told me she was scared," Denise whispered. "Said he was hiding something in the lake house, the one up in Pennsylvania. But I thought she was being dramatic." The lake house. The one he never let me visit. "Too many bad memories," he'd said. That weekend, I told him I was going on a women's retreat. Instead, I drove to that house alone. Inside, it was frozen in time. Catherine's perfume lingered faintly in the air. Dust on every surface except the study. There, on the desk, was a photo of Michael and Catherine, smiling. And, behind the frame, a hidden USB drive. My hands shook as I pocketed it. Whatever it contained, I knew it would change everything. I waited until Michael was asleep before I plugged in the drive. The screen flickered. Then I saw her, Catherine, alive, terrified, staring into the camera. Behind the lens, Michael's voice spoke calmly. "If you'd just listened, Catherine, none of this would have happened." "You're scaring the children," she cried. Then a smaller voice, trembling. "Daddy, stop."
Grace.
The camera shifted just enough to catch her reflection in a mirror, frozen, crying. Eli beside her. And then the sound, a thud, a scream, silence. The recording ended. I sat there in the dark, numb. Grace had witnessed it. She'd lived her whole life knowing. And Michael, my husband, had murdered his wife in front of their children. The next morning, I confronted Grace. She froze when I said her mother's name. "You saw it, didn't you?" I whispered. Her eyes filled instantly. "He said she fell. He said, if we told anyone, we'd lose everything." She broke down, sobbing like the child she had once been. And I realized She hadn't just been protecting her father all these years. She'd been protecting her brother, too. That night, we made a pact. We wouldn't go to the police yet. We would make him confess. Publicly, undeniably. Because a man like Michael didn't deserve prison first. He deserved fear. It started with a note, written in Catherine's handwriting. "I see what you did, Michael. Justice is coming." Grace slipped it under his windshield before dawn. By noon, he was pacing the kitchen, muttering to himself. By evening, he was drinking again. The next day, an email arrived in his inbox from a dead woman. "Did you think I'd stay quiet forever?" He stormed into the living room, pale and shaking. "Claire, are you behind this?" I looked up from my coffee. "Maybe it's your conscience." He stared at me, lost. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. By day 3, he slept with the lights on. By day 5, he whispered into the dark, "Catherine, I'm sorry." And that was just the beginning. We took it beyond the house. I placed Catherine's old photos in his briefcase. One on his desk. Another taped to his car windshield. He accused me, yelled, threatened. Then came the charity gala, the one he hosted every year. As he stood before the crowd, ready to give his speech, the projector came to life. But instead of his presentation, the video played. Catherine's scream echoed through the room. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. He lunged for the stage, shouting, "It's fake." But the silence that followed said everything. By the end of the night, his empire began to crumble. And I whispered to myself, "Justice has a sound. Tonight, it's applause." The next morning, his face was everywhere. He came home raging. "You think you can ruin me?" He grabbed my wrist until Grace appeared, phone in hand, recording. "Let her go, Dad." He froze. The red light blinked on her screen. "You destroyed Mom," she said. "Now everyone will know what you did." He stormed out. By the next day, his company suspended him, pending investigation. The empire he'd stolen from Catherine was slipping through his fingers. One night, I heard him downstairs, breaking things, searching. When he found what he was looking for, a USB drive taped beneath a drawer, he fled into the storm. Grace and I followed him to a storage unit on the outskirts of Baltimore. When he left, we broke in. Inside were boxes labeled KM Archives. And in one folder, Project Haven, Confidential. It was Catherine's dream project, but rewritten with one detail changed. Upon her accidental death, all assets would transfer to Michael. He hadn't just killed her in a fit of rage. He'd planned it. And that was the weapon we needed. We sent the documents anonymously to his company's board. Within hours, it was news everywhere. Podcasts, talk shows, headlines. Project Haven, love, money, and murder? Michael called, panicked. "Claire, listen to me." She was unstable. I had to. He stopped mid-sentence, realizing what he'd just confessed. When I didn't reply, he hung up. By sunset, reporters surrounded the house. Someone shouted, "Did you kill your wife for money, Mr. Miller?" He said nothing, just pushed past them and drove away. I watched from the window and whispered, "The world finally sees you." He returned that night, in the rain, desperate. "You ruined me," he spat. "You think you're a saint?" I stood still. "I think I'm a witness." He grabbed me. "You don't know what it was like with her. She was leaving. She was going to destroy everything."
He stopped.
His breath trembled. I pushed her.
She fell.
It was supposed to be an accident. Behind him, Grace stood at the top of the stairs, phone recording. The police arrived minutes later. He was still sobbing when they dragged him away. For the first time in years, the house was quiet. The courthouse smelled of rain and old wood. Michael sat slouched at the defense table, hollow-eyed, defeated. The jury watched as the prosecution played the recording, his confession. Then Grace took the stand. "My mom didn't deserve what happened," she said, voice trembling. "And my stepmom, she saved us." When the verdict came, it was swift, guilty. Life without parole. The gavel struck, echoing like thunder. Justice didn't roar that day. It whispered. A year later, peace returned. Grace painted again. Eli called more often. We started the Haven Project, a foundation to help women rebuild after abuse. On the shelter wall, Grace painted a phoenix rising from ashes, holding 2 children in its wings. Beneath it were the words, "Truth never dies. It waits for courage." At night, I sat on the porch, staring at the stars. For the first time, I didn't feel haunted. Michael's name still appeared in papers occasionally, appeals denied. But I didn't flinch. His story had ended. Ours had just begun. 3 years later, I visited him in prison. He looked small, shrunken, gray, forgotten. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I almost didn't," I replied. I told him Grace forgave him. "Not because you deserve it, but because she refuses to carry your sin anymore." He looked down, tears forming. "And you? I don't hate you," I said softly. "I pitied you the day I realized control was all you ever loved." Before leaving, I left a newspaper clipping on the table. The Haven Project opens 10th Women's Shelter in Baltimore. He read it with trembling hands. Tears fell. As the door closed behind me, I said quietly, "That's Catherine's legacy, not yours." Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time, I breathed without the weight of the past. Because I hadn't just destroyed him. I had rewritten the ending. Thank you for listening to my story. Please like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.